Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Zebra BI webinar on sales performance dashboards in Power BI. What you see on the screen, this is the sales performance dashboard we'll be talking about today, and we'll focus on the logic and building blocks behind it. What makes a sales dashboard actually useful for managers, reps, and executives? We'll break down how to handle AC versus plan, end-of-month targets and forecasts, additional KPIs like win rates, payouts, and commissions, how security is built in with row-level security, and finally, how all of this translates into a clear mobile-friendly view for sales teams in the field. By the end, you'll know what a good sales performance dashboard should include, how to structure it, and what to watch out for in your own reports. Now, my name is Mark. I'm a BI specialist here at Zebra BI, and I'll be your main host for today. I'm joined by Tine Ozimic, our head of BI, and he'll take you through the mobile reporting best practices later on. So, Tine, say hi to our audience.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Hello, it's been a while since I attended the webinar in the presentation role, but yeah, good to be back, I have to say. I think we have a super interesting topic, so make sure to stay tuned.
Okay, excellent. So let's go to the agenda for today. In the next 45 minutes, we'll cover the key challenges and requirements companies face in sales performance reporting. We'll walk through a clean real-world business scenario, and then we'll show you step-by-step how to build a complete sales performance dashboard using Power BI with Zebra BI for Power BI. Stick around till the end, and we'll have a short Q&A and a quick sneak peek of the mobile layouts, but also we'll share all the resources and download links. So yes, we will send you the recording. Okay, so what are the key challenges and requirements, right? And why most sales performance reports fail for the sales teams, right? So the first things that usually is missing in these reports is that there's a lot of numbers without clear context, right? So there's no clear story. There's a lot of charts, visualizations, but there's no clear insights, no targets, no trends, or benchmarks where we can clearly see how we're performing. And when we're including all of these comparisons and variances between like reps, periods, products, and regions, there's no clear explanations. There's no consistent standards like colors, formats, and scaling. And in the end, the reports fail to explain why performance changed, right? You only basically showcase what the numbers are, but you don't explain through the reports what is the action and what actually happens, right? So what we want to, in actionable reporting, we want to display and guide the users or the report users to see not only what happened, right, but also to guide them towards the correct decision and actions and so on. So this is typically why the reports also fail. And when we obscure the data and either present it just in plain numbers or tables and so on, or do not visualize it properly, this forces sales leaders and operations specialists and so on to dig, export, and interpret instead of actually act, right? So we spend a lot of time trying to understand what is even the report showing and not interpreting that data, right? And then providing the right actions. Now, a lot of times we also then leave the reps guessing about like quota attainment and commissions, and that can lead to some frustrations. And a lot of times all of this is also consumed on mobile reports, right? So that's or on the go, right? So we want to optimize this for different user groups and different requirements. And this is also a key thing that's usually missing in these kind of reports. Now, what is the goal here and what the sales performance report should deliver is, of course, instant clarity, right? No digging at a glance, attainment versus quota, pipelines, forecasts, and risk on deals needs to be immediately transparent, right? And so has to be the commission logic, right? Clear view of plan structures, rate tiers, accelerators, caps, drawbacks, and so on. So reps instantly see how they're doing, what's the existing commission base, what are the required activities, and basically they can do a self-assessment as well. Now, a lot of the things that this, of course, requires is also clear forecasts and targets, right? So forward-looking views with end-of-month forecasts per rep and estimated like commission payouts to highlight the gaps and recommended actions then to close them. Now, all of this, of course, needs to be secure and governed. So we need to have role-based access. We can ensure role-level security for sensitive revenue and commission data. And in the end, as we said, this needs to work for everyone, like optimized for desktop consumption with executive, but also for sales reps in the field, right? So, when they're working on the road and so on. Okay, so we'll look at, now we'll go into the demo and we'll look at a typical real-world sales environment and specifics of the sales performance reporting, like how to do reps, key accounts, channel performance. We'll dive into key KPIs like actual sales, plans, variances, end of month target progress, win rates, payouts, and commissions. And we'll look through it through the lenses of different stakeholders, like managers who needs more of like overviews and comparisons, sales reps who want to target their own incentives and commissions, and execs who need like accurate, quick insights with also added comments. Okay. So let's jump into Power BI and see how to build a report such as this one, right? So this is a report you can easily build with Zebra BI visuals. Now, before we actually go into this, a lot of you are, of course, following and joining us for the first time. So we need to maybe just give you a brief explanation of what a Zebra BI visual is. So let's just go to a clean page here in Power BI, and I'll show you how to access the visuals first, but also how easy it is to then build all of this information. Of course, we do have to have our data ready for that, right? But once you bring the data, it's essential that we visualize it properly. Okay, so if we take a look at the screen, you will find Zebra BI visuals as a custom visual in Power BI. So here are the standard visualizations, and you can also, of course, spin your custom visuals, as you can see here. But first of all, you have to bring them into your reports. So if you already have a template for that's already prepared, that's even better. Or you can also design the report so these are organizational visuals. So basically, everyone can use this in the same way that you would any other visualization type in Power BI. But before that, if you're just starting out for the first time, all you need to do is go to App Source, search for Zebra, and here you'll find all three visuals that are used and then included in this, right? And each visual has its own more specialized purposes, right? So the Zebra BI cards can be really well used for scorecard reports, KPI tracking, and so on. The Zebra BI charts are mainly for time trends analysis and includes all sorts of best practice visual charting options. And Zebra BI tables is a very, very comprehensive visual that can display different details, different level of details. And it's mainly used for, let's say, structural breakdowns. Okay, but once you basically import those visuals, and as you can see, they are Power BI certified, so you can have basically the same experience as you would with all native Power BI visuals. Your data is secured, and Microsoft guarantees this, that this is only being used for visualization and no data is actually stored or so on. Okay, but once you actually bring those visuals to your visualization pane, you of course need to start building it, and you can just add the visualization by clicking on it. And if we start with the charts, right, the best way to showcase this is you can just add any measure that you want to benchmark it, right? So actuals versus plan, or break it down by first maybe a month, right, the time trend. But in this case, of course, we want to turn off the slicer for this visual, okay? So we can also turn off the interaction altogether, so the slicer shouldn't affect the trends, and you can do this here in the edit interactions. You simply turn this off, and now even if I have a month selected like this, of course, it's not going to affect the visual. Okay, but this is not yet actionable, right? What we want to do is we want to include some sort of performance tracking. So either versus previous year or versus plan, right? We just simply drag and drop that measure into the placeholder, and Zebra BI will actually visualize this. So here you have a lot of different chart options, right? So, and all of them are basically according to best practices. Of course, depending on different, let's say, trends or timelines that you're looking at, maybe you want to use something like a clustered column chart like this, right? And this is all responsive. So even if we make the visual smaller, right, we can have different views. It's very interactive, and you can customize the experience for your end users, right? You can also change layouts to present just growth trends and so on in the chart settings, something like this, right? Where we present just absolute growth trends and so on, but we'll not dive too much into this specifics, right? The important thing is that you don't need to think about the design. It's always focused on performance. So whatever metric you follow, it will follow performance, and then you have just different types of displaying this, whether it is a waterfall chart for the global trends, or maybe something like a column chart for analyzing individual periods better. Okay, that's for the chart visualization, right? But as I mentioned, right, you can use also the Zebra BI cards and the Zebra BI tables. So the cards, again, can be used, you just bring it to the visualization pane, and then you add, so let me just turn off the interactions for now, and then you add, again, your measures. You can then add, again, a comparison measure, and then you can break it down by different units. So it could be by locations, by segments, and so on. So in this case, you could like just use different groups of segments, and you can use this as a KPI breakdown of sorts to display like different targets. And it's all, of course, built into the visualization, right? So there's no additional need of formatting, except maybe just to add is proper scaling between all those metrics, right? And to have like a correct display of the impact also on your sales. Now, the last visualization is, as I mentioned, the Zebra BI tables, which can be really, really powerful in terms of display against all tracked metrics. So if we want to benchmark our sales force, we can just start with the segment, add in like a name for the sales reps, and just expand the hierarchy. And now we add our actual data. So again, we add data, we add our targets, and Zebra BI visuals will do the rest. They will track against your performance. You can format, you can change the display logic of different visualizations. And when we need to add secondary values, it's as easy as just dropping those into the placeholder value for values, right? So additional metrics or KPIs like realization, payout class can just easily be added to that frame, right? So we can fill out all the information that we want to add for our sales force and then executives, and voila, we already have a really nice report. And you can even combine like different layouts, right? So if you want to have more like a numbers view, but again, it's always best to include any sort of visualization. So you can easily just switch like contribution or to any other like display, and then combine maybe a full visualized view, and you can display like different chart options like size dots that easily like forecast and display your amounts. Plus, if you need to, of course, then add like forecasting scenarios and so on, we can also add that, right? So for instance, when we're in November, we could just easily add the unclosed measure, and using the logic, right, and the standardization, we can easily now represent the forecast with a hashed pattern. So we see exactly how we're doing on each of those KPIs, right? But let's go now to the finish page, and let's see how we can, of course, interpret that data, right? So we can easily now track for each of the representatives, either the managers or the store consultants, sales advisors, how they were doing, what is the commission that needs to be tracked, and so on. We see the payout class, the payout, and the commission base. Now, there's a lot of information here, but it's easily digestible, and we see exactly how we are performing. Now, even if we were to include like an overlapped bar chart, right, because everything is correctly scaled, we now have the correct representation of each of the data points. And we can sort by either the best performing units, the worst performing units, and so on. So it's easily accessible to everyone on one click. Now, the important part here is also to, of course, include those end of month trends and forecasts, right? So that we can actually plan on top of it and provide even additional information. And for this, we can, as I said, bring in the forecast scenario. But, right, in that case, when we look into this end of month trends with the forecasts, we want to also showcase those variances. Now, I know Tine has worked on quite a lot of this sales reports, so I'll just give him maybe a chance here to jump in and add his own perspective also, and how to then look into this in more like a trend-like view to understand exactly how we're performing.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. That's a great point. And I do think like this end of month trend calculation is super important, especially when we are dealing with like maybe daily based data frequency, but at the same time, you want to compare it to something that is on monthly level, like forecast or a plan. So essentially, you know, what we want to achieve is to basically create an adequate number that we can actually compare to our forecasts and plans and targets and so on. And you know, because if you are only like 5 days into your month, it doesn't make sense to compare those numbers with your full month plan, for example. And essentially, with end of month trend, we try to predict what our performance will be at the end of the month. Of course, this is not the exact number, but it does give us ability to have like a valid comparison point. And there are different ways how to do that. So basically, you can do something really simple, like a linear trend of your performance, how, you know, this will end up. And typically, you can also do things like combining your month-to-date data. So for example, if you already have like actual data for the first 10 days, of course, that's the real information. We want to keep that. But then maybe we can calculate, you know, what is the average daily sales. And, you know, if we know that we have 20 remaining days, we can just maybe multiply those two and add on top of, you know, month-to-date data that we already have. And this will give you a kind of an indication what will be end of month performance. But the good thing is that with each day, right, your data is becoming more and more reliable because more data is the actual data, and then those prediction trend data, it's becoming less and less with each day. Maybe we can do even more complex and advanced things. So for example, of course, some industries have their own pipelines, meaning you have the deals that you're, I don't know, close and so on. So you can maybe add your weighted pipeline on top of month-to-date performance. And again, what you are achieving with that is prediction, what will the end of month result be? And this gives you ability to compare that to your official plan, which again, I think is the whole benefit in all of that.
Yeah, excellent. And that's of course the whole idea, right? So we want to provide as much information and as detailed information at the right time, but also of course be prepared for everything in the future. Now, of course, the majority of time that your users will spend is looking at, if you of course design the reports really well, on the overview page where the data is accessed and personalized directly for them. Now, the other thing that you can of course do and then be really specific about it, and this is maybe some more of the advanced stuff, you can also like add certain filters to the filters context, and then if you want to like specify dynamic titles and stuff like that, you can also just drop it into the filters placeholder, and this is specific to Zebra BI visuals, and this allows you to do also like a lot of cool things, right? Dynamic titles in this case. So for instance, we can reference those measures here with simple autocomplete. So if I wanted to just call out the selected month in a particular header category or in the title itself, right? So even better maybe would be to call it out in the title here for selected year and selected month, right? I can do this in the title because I have those reference points added. So in this case, I can just add in selected month. But yeah, just remove this one. Okay. So this means that now this respectively reflects whatever I have my selection, and the users will know better, right, what the actual data is displayed. Now, additionally, we can enhance some of the displays with custom tooltips, right? So basically, we can allow breakdowns of further breakdowns without even leaving the page. So when we don't need to go to a details page just yet, right? When we just want to see the top customers for that particular period, or maybe we can switch the tooltip, right? So here we can present this for a different group, right? So either break it down by product group, on particular like reps, and or later on, right, even for sales type, right? So you could modify the tooltips and displays and so on within Power BI, but also, as you said, by using like different views and maybe even bookmarking them to present the exact specific detail. And you can even allow the end users to have personalized bookmarked views. Now, the filters placeholder also acts as a really good indicator for us so that we can add commentary on top of it, right? So to explain something that is not even in the data set, right? And only the users, of course, have that insight. And this explanatory insights can be added, and this is really powerful, can be added directly to the dashboard. So when your manager asks about the things, he can see like dedicated commentary for those the specific areas, right? So if you wanted to add a comment, you can just go into the annotation layer and just add your comment on a particular data point, right? Just like that. And it will be saved with the specific filter context in mind, right? So if I now go to look at some of the different sales reps, I can see the commentary just for that particular sales rep. Now, one of the important aspects we talked about is also that security, right? And that it has to be personalized for each and every sales representative or for manager views and so on. And we can actually control this through the role level security. We can set our own roles and then view how and role play those roles, so we can basically test them out, right? And the best way to do is to either do it on your existing Azure or now Entra ID groups, and you basically define your roles for security. So, for instance, when we just want to role play, and this is just for role play sake, right? We can just create a role for that specialized user. This, of course, is maybe not the best practice, right? The best practice would be to actually use a user principal name. So this means that whatever their Microsoft login is and whatever their Microsoft specific roles are, right, and permissions, it would be applied based on that, right? So for instance, when I'm looking at my own data, I can then just view as that user limited role. So my own data will only be displayed, and it will check actually for my credentials. So now I can see only the data required for me. And this goes also for other pages. Like if I go to the details page, I can now see only my details where I can have like maybe more of a table layout where I want to go into and dig into, right? But the main information on my performance is, of course, on the main page, right? Only if I need to look for a specific data point, I can go into this details page. Now, and this is accessible like with one click and so on. Now, if I were to play like view as like a different role with maybe unlimited access as a manager, right? I could see all of this information, right? And that's of course as expected. And again, right, maybe for that specific user, right, he will only see his own information, and that's the best way basically to specify the role level security and access so that the user sees only their information, and they can also then personalize this information once the report is published and in service. Now, the last part of course of all of this is we want to also present all this information on the particular device that's required for the user, right? So sales reps on the go, right, want to see their information, and that is where I will hand over the word to Tine, who will present that part. So let me just stop sharing the screen and give the word to Tine.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Like as you mentioned, there are a lot of cases and like specific industry where mobile reporting is super important, especially the ones that are maybe like more field oriented. And also like executives, since they are traveling a lot, they consume reporting and information through mobile devices. So for sure, this is super important concept. And let me start off by saying that, in its core, mobile reporting is not that much different from standard reporting. It's still based on all those key core principles of actionable reporting and information design that we as Zebra recommend and Mark showcased in his previous session. However, yes, like the media or the device through which we interact with the reports, it's quite different and specific. And that means that, of course, we do need to follow like a few technical rules and best practices so that we ensure like the best user experience and so that the end users get the most out of the report. And in my presentation, I'm going to focus on that, the key best practices when designing mobile reports. And maybe I'll start with the technical aspect, because typically mobile reports are built on top of already existing, let's call them desktop reports. And there are a few problems with that. The main one, Power BI does not have like a super great support to control what is being shown either in the desktop view or in the mobile view. And because of that, you cannot hide like maybe specific mobile views in the desktop mode and vice versa. And that's why our recommendation is to actually create a dedicated report just for mobile and maybe dedicated report that is already there for desktop. In reality, yes, that means that we do have two different reports, but that will enable us to really focus on the right things when designing mobile reports, to have mobile layouts and then also to create visualizations that are suitable for that. But at the end, right, you still have the same semantic model in the background. So there's still like this one source of truth and only like one data model that you need to take care of. Now, if I just like really quickly demonstrate how to simply do that in Power BI service. So if you go under create, then you have a couple of different options where you can like, of course, import your data, but then you can also pick up your semantic data model as a data source. So if I just maybe select the semantic data model that is exactly the same as the one that Mark used, I just select this one, and then I can create, auto-generated report or create a blank one. And I just select that, have my data model here, and then I start building, a report optimized for mobile. So for sure, this is a practice that we would recommend to follow when creating mobile reports. But then, of course, from the conceptual perspective, we need to organize this a bit differently, because mobile reporting is all about providing, like quick insights, quick informations, answers, and all of that. And since, of course, we are limited with space, it's even that more important that we focus on what really matters. Typically, that means simplifying your, let's say, existing report from the perspective to focus on top-level KPIs, on the key drivers of your business, maybe the most important business elements or segments, countries, whatever. It's kind of a, moving the needle within your business. And this is super important to have that focus always when designing mobile reports, because of course you cannot squeeze as many information as on like regular reports. So for example, here we have like the P&A report with a lot of specific insights and then additional columns and all of that. But of course, we cannot squeeze everything on mobile. So what we focus here is maybe just on the variance and actual performance so that we can understand where we are performing above or below the plan. And like speaking of the way how we interact with the report and how are we limited with space, we are also dealing with a different pattern. Like on PC, on the computer, you typically have those like F and Z patterns in the way how you read the report. So you start like, top left, and then you go like either in the Z or F form or something like that. On the mobile, the logic is actually different. Like typically it's more like vertical. And actually this is also something we would recommend, go top to bottom and also organize everything in that fashion, have this storytelling from top level KPIs as we can see here, and then maybe go to the trends and a bit more detailed breakdowns later on. But again, we would for sure recommend to have that more scrollable approach when interacting with the report. Now, of course, we also need to follow like a certain design and visual selection rules. And I would maybe start with visual selection. Typically, we would advise you to use, like, I would say less complex visual, like, cards, top-level KPIs, and even like, of course, charts and tables. But the ones that you are using should be, I would say, stripped down, pretty, simplified and all of that, so that, again, they are suitable for mobile reporting. And of course, use enough spacing in between, use enough font sizes, high enough font sizes so that you will actually be able to select like a certain category, click on it, and all of that. And if we ensure those things, user experience on mobile will be much better than if we, just add too much information and then at the end we are not able to like usefully interact with the whole mobile report. Now here we have another example that is maybe a bit specific for Zebra BI Visual, since our tables include also ability to switch between two different layouts. You can actually combine that. So here you have this icon for the chart slider, And what that gives you is ability to actually switch between two different views. Here I have an example of the P&A report, and one view could maybe be focused on the actual data and the structure of the P&L from that perspective. But then other view, right, can be focused on the variance. So we are covering all of that within the same visual, but from two different point of views, right? One is kind of the actual performance, the other one is variance. And the good thing is you can do that within the same visual, meaning you don't need additional space. That is, of course, always limited when dealing with mobile reports. By the way, you can also bookmark that and maybe use a button to switch between those two options. But then bookmarks can also be used for creating, I would say, app-like experience, which I think it's for sure a good selection on the mobile reports. So here I have an example where the actual navigation of the report itself is done through so the navigation button. But the whole idea here is, again, to create app-like experience where you just maybe click on the button and then you switch between different pages. So here we have like the overview, and then we have like the hires and salary pages as well. And you can simply just, navigate by clicking on the button. In general, I think on mobile, that's a better option than maybe clicking the default menu. And then finally, maybe one additional feature that is a bit Zebra unique and can be really useful in the context of mobile reporting is the so-called top N or different variation of top N. But to summarize, the idea here is to kind of narrow down a lot of data into something much more manageable, tangible, and something you can, again, put on smaller space. So if you look at the table on the left, we have quite a lot of different countries, and then we have comparison to plan. Let's say it's revenue performance. But what we have on the right-hand side is exactly the same data and visual. However, we use the so-called bottom plus top N. And since we apply it on the variance, essentially what we have here are the best performing elements and the worst performing elements. And then all the others are grouped together into others category. And this is typically what do you want to achieve. Focus on the outlier, either the positive or the negative ones, and maybe don't put that much, effort and focus on the things that are more or less aligned with plan. And what that gives me are the kind of the positive and the negative outliers. And we went from 45 or 50 countries down to something much more manageable, maybe 10. And again, we can squeeze them on the mobile layout and have geographical performance as well. And this is just one example of going from complex visual to much more simplified one. And in general, again, that would be one of the main recommendations, to stay away from complex visualization and focus on something much more manageable and more top level. And, this will in most cases also prevent a really, I would say, a painful thing in the mobile reporting, which is to have also additional scroll bars or sliders within the visual itself, because then you're dealing with a scrollable device and then additional scrolling option within the visual itself. And this is really painful. If possible, try to avoid that when creating mobile reports. Okay, and I think that kind of concludes those key recommendations for designing mobile reports. Now, Mark, back to you for a final recap of the today's session.
Okay, so let me just grab the screen. So let's recap for the key takeaways of today's session, right? So for good sales reporting, we want to have, first of all, good variance analysis, right? For storytelling done right, because we need to have that clarity as our foundation of good reporting. Now, we want to include end of period forecasts and targets, because this is, of course, one of the main things that sales reps care about, right? How are they doing against the planned targets, based on which they, of course, receive their commissions. And for all of this, you, of course, need actionable visuals that clearly present the data And ideally, we want to have this standardized across our reporting scenarios and reports in general, so that wherever we basically have business reporting, we have the same information presented in the same way, with same representation, maybe even notated correctly, like hash patterns and so on. So we can easily then understand the data through, of course, acquired knowledge about how the visuals should always look. And the fourth point is, of course, to have personalized user access that we can ensure with sensitivity of data through row-level security. Now, of course, doing proper row-level security, of course, ensures that the right data is accessed with the right people, and also that you don't clutter the reports with information that is not necessary for those users. And lastly, of course, we want to design reports for the end user in mind, right? So we use both desktop and mobile layouts when, of course, this makes sense to cover the different user needs. But don't just take our word for it, right? You can try the visuals on your own data and start building your reports today, right? Here on the screen, you can just scan the QR code, which will take you to the free trial page, so you can import the visuals into your own reports and start building the data today. All you need to do then, of course, is import the visuals from the Power BI app source by writing in Zebra, either in all visuals or app source visuals. And yes, this is not all, right? So we have a lot of resources for you available if you're interested in other areas. We have more than 50 hours of webinars for different specific topics, even on how to structure the reports, how to also handle different visualization options. We have an online learning academy that takes you step by step on how to basically approach reporting, actionable reporting in the right way. It's not only specific for of course, Zebra visuals, but actionable reporting in general. So if you're starting within Power BI, this is probably the best place to go with. And we also host live demos with Q&A each month, so you can also assign on those. Now, the template that we've shown today will also be shared with you in the follow-up, but we also have other templates for other specific areas of reporting, like HR reports, financial reports, and so on, with which Zebra BI and our IBCS standards also excel very well. Now, in the end, this leaves us with the Q&A, so let's jump to the Q&A session right now. So starting with the first one, how do I use top and bottom end feature? So when you're adding your data to the tables, right? And if you have like a long list of categories, and let me add just a comparison measure. What you can do is right-click on any category here, right? And here you access the top and bottom end. So basically, you can choose either top end and then select any of the measures here that you're using, or an even better way, right? And a specific use case where we are looking at all outliers, right? So for instance, I have a long list of units, and I just want to highlight the outliers, right? I don't need this scrollable list. What you can do is actually just show the total contribution, like a waterfall, okay? Maybe even add the grand total. And then I can just select the top and bottom end to highlight all the outliers. Maybe just keep it like to 8 items in edit mode and in the focus mode, right? So when you bring it up, maybe I want to see like a bigger list. So this, of course, keeps my top and plus others and our focus of the viewers on where it's needed, but we still keep the total here, right? Okay, but you can even specify different between like the edit mode or the smaller visual, right? And then I can have this all this information highly dense like this, right? But I can even specify a separate number of items in the focus mode. Right, so you have both options when you bring this like to a bigger screen or extend it over the entire thing. Let me just close this up. So that's the first question. Okay, and let's go to the second one. Click, do you have a solution for this BI? Unfortunately not at this moment, right? So we are pretty much Microsoft and Power BI based. So yes, we do offer the visuals in Microsoft Power BI. We also have an Office solution. So you can basically use the same functionality with interactive visuals within both Microsoft Excel and PowerPoint. And this means also in the cloud solution. So even in Office 365, it's supported in both the desktop and Office solution. Okay, maybe next question. Adding the visuals, is there any way to add them to an organization? And every user should have them without the need to add them one by one. Yes, that is also possible. We can share with you an article in our knowledge base. So let me just bring that up. So I think, yeah, I already have this one open. So basically, you can distribute all the visuals as your organizational store visuals, either in the as a private package, right? You simply upload it and mark it in your organizational store, but you can also add the app source version of the visuals. So this one with the certified badge, also as an organizational visual, and by default, then everyone in your organization will see this native. So basically, yes, you can distribute your visuals as organizational visuals, either as a private version or an app source version. So both versions can be added to your organizational store, and then your users will actually see these visuals as the native ones, right? So here you can see, if added to the organizational store, this would be available for everyone.
Great point.
Organization.
And once you add them, you will see them next to the already existing native Power BI visuals. I would just add that you do need, I believe, admin rights in order to be able to access the organization store, if I'm not mistaken. Just something to keep in mind. But I think it makes sense from the governance perspective.
Yeah. Okay, and here's maybe a question for you, Tina. So usually I should build the desktop dashboard first, then mobile dashboard with excluding the full details and keep only what's most important, question mark. My other question mark about organization store just answered. Okay, yeah, good.
Perfect. So, yes, that's a great point. And look, I would say there's not like one golden rule that you should follow in all of the cases. My main recommendation would be that, you know, when you're creating something, have a clear plan what you are creating. If it's like a desktop report first, you know, of course, optimize it for desktop. But then if on top of that you build something, let's say mobile specific, maybe don't use that report, and then, you know, just try to recycle it to something mobile, because as mentioned before, you don't have a great option how to control what to show in mobile and what to show in desktop. I think that's the key disadvantage. So I would say in general, you know, if you go developing something with a clear plan that this is going to be a mobile report, then of course you start with the mobile report, and maybe afterwards you build desktop if additional details are needed. That would be like one case, I would say. But in most of the cases, I would say that yes, typically the let's call the dashboard reports are built, and then on top of that, something for mobile is being done. And again, recommendation here is to maybe create separate report for that and use all the, you know, best elements of mobile reporting in the mobile reporting layout and in dedicated mobile report. So that would be kind of my main advice and proposal here. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so do we have anything else? I think it was something related to the bookmarks. So yes, actually both options are possible. In my example, I was actually using again the navigation button, meaning I was switching between different pages, right? But again, also bookmarks could be an option. In general, I would say if you are dealing with manageable amount of visuals, which typically is the case in mobile reporting, it shouldn't have the negative impact on the performance. Of course, if we go crazy with too many elements, then perhaps it should have some, or it could have some performance impacts. But in general, I don't think it should be a problem. But again, the option with, of course, pages and then navigation button works like a charm. So maybe that would be my first recommendation. There was also a comment or a comment rather regarding the scrolling experience with the report. Again, I guess this is also a matter of a preference. So I can see the case if you are like scrolling through a long detailed table, it can be a bit overwhelming. Again, in general, I do think scrolling experience on the mobile is a good one. Actually, all the apps that we do, like from Facebook to Instagram to Googling pictures and all of that, well, actually we are scrolling vertically, right, and going through the content. So I think in general, that is kind of the common practice on the mobile device. Hence, I would also recommend it on the mobile. But again, as showcased, there are also different options, switching within the same visual or using different kinds of navigation to actually switching between pages rather than scrolling vertically. So again, we showed both options. I guess at the end, it's your preference and decision. But I think both options can be a good one. If you would ask me, I personally would choose the scrolling option. Yes, Mark, do we have anything else specific? So we have something related to licensing. So maybe we can leave this one for the end. So yes, there was also a question regarding comments and ability to use dynamic comments. Now, Mark, I think you actually do have the case shown there with the comments. So there are different ways how to incorporate comments, dynamic comments. And there are different options, but in any case, I would say this is a great addition also on the mobile, for example, because you can bring in additional context into your report. So Mark, maybe you can just quickly explain kind of the whole logic, how this is set up in the background.
Correct. So for commentary, right, there are actually two ways the Zebra BI visuals, and this is specific to those visuals, where you can implement the comments. So if you're looking at like a large-scale enterprise solution and you want to like control like all the row-level security and multi-layered access, the easy way is to basically include the comments as a separate table and then link it to the necessary dimensions, right, by which you wish to filter them. It also will then dynamically correspond, and then you can just place the comments in the comments placeholder. So that's let's say the preferred way for enterprise commentary. But like for smaller teams or just like simple annotations, you can actually add your commentary through the visualizations, right, through the visuals themselves. But if you want them to be dynamic and to respect like the outside filter context, we have this placeholder field, right? So in this case, I just dropped a few placeholders or fields, right? I could even just add another one, and that would change the filter context under which those comments are saved. So for instance, now when I add the comment on a particular month, it is saved under the conditions for that selection of users, right? So this comment is going to be like assigned to under like all users, but if I have like a row level security applied, or if I just filter for my own comments, right, I'll get the comments that are entered under those conditions, right? So for instance, if I now add comment on like Tina's like timeline here, and it would be saved under those conditions. Same for the tables, right? In the table, you can do same commentary. So I can go into the annotations, I can add some comments on some metrics or under performance here, and it will be stored under the conditions. But beforehand, before I do this like commentary addition or even highlights, right? You can even do some storytelling, and I can highlight certain aspects or add commentary on top of that. And again, these highlights are again highly sticky. So right, even if I collapse, expand, this will still work properly. This is going to be saved again under those conditions. So when I change the month, right, that commentary is going to be dynamically responding to my selections. So you can keep historical selections and so on. So basically, there's two ways how to do commentary. We actually have a few webinars dedicated on this whole topic and how you can do it. And that's maybe if you're interested in like write back of the commentary or the annotations themselves, I would highly advise you checking those out. Just go to the webinars page of our resources and just write in commentary, and yeah, I think that would be a good place to start.
Great. Then I saw also a question from Mike. So Mike obviously joined a bit later. No worries, Mike. We recorded the session and we will send it tomorrow. So no worries, you didn't miss anything. And actually, the Mark's part was all about the things that you mentioned. So how to compare your actuals to the plan, how to show the variance and all of that, right? This is the key of sales performance reporting. And then on top of that, Mark also showed the option of kind of creating the end of month trends and then incorporating that with the plan. So that would be kind of the forecast part. So I think we covered all of the key topics that you are interested in. Again, we will follow up with the session tomorrow. So no worries, you didn't miss anything. And yeah, I think Mark, that kind of concludes our today's session. I think there are no more questions, so I'll leave it to you to wrap it up.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining today's session. Right, as we said, there's a lot to learn here. You can go to, if you're new with Zebra BI and Power BI in general, a great starting point would be our onboarding page. But otherwise, just go to zebrabi.com and you'll find like resources for like templates, other webinars. We even have some very good success stories from different segments, so you can read up on that. But yeah, the best way to learn is, of course, to try this on your own data. So just go to zebrabi.com and start your free trial with the visuals and import them into Power BI and go crazy. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Thank you, Tine, for co-hosting with me. And yeah, see you in the next one.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.